The Blast from Our Past Network.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom, and enjoy this bonus episode of Podcasting After Dark.
Hey everybody, co-host Corey here with another mini review. This time I'm going to be talking about 28 Years Later, the newest entry in the 28 Days Later franchise. Is that what it's even called, or is it just called the 28 Later franchise? Who knows? But here we are. My wife and I just saw 28 Years Later last night, so it's pretty fresh in my head, but I've only seen it once. I don't know if I'll get something wrong, but it's a possibility. It's not like I was taking notes or anything in the movie theater. I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but I don't think that's going to be as doable as I was able to do with the Predator Killer of Killers mini review. I was able to keep that pretty much spoiler-free. This one, I'm going to have to talk about some stuff. So if you are interested in seeing the movie, and it just came out in theaters like this weekend, you might want to just wait, go check it out, and then come back and pop this review in if you want to. And if you're not worried about it, please, by all means, move forward with the review. And I hope you all dig it. Let me know. Let me know what you think. So I guess, where am I coming from on the 28 Later franchise? I love the first movie, 28 Days Later. Saw it, I think, 2 or 3 times when it was originally came out in the theater. I was absolutely blown away by it. I freaking loved it. I loved the different take on the quote-unquote zombie genre. I know they're not zombies technically in it, but obviously, it's almost kind of like the movie Mom and Dad. It's like, that's not a zombie movie, but I feel like it's a part of the zombie genre, and so is this. Absolutely love the first one. I think it's damn near a perfect film, directed by Danny Boyle, just like this one. 28 Weeks Later, I very much enjoy. I've seen it a few times, saw it in the theater, seen it a couple times, since then. I enjoy it as a movie, but I think story-wise, it is very, very problematic with a lot of logic holes and a lot of logic jumps and everything. It's stuff that I'll let it go when I'm watching the film, but if I kind of think back on it, some of those problems become more apparent when I'm not actually in the movie. And I also read the entire 24-issue run of the 28 Days Later comic book series by Boom Studios. It bridges the gap between 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. I think it's very good. It follows Selena from 28 Days Later. I think everyone should read it if you have not already. If you're a fan of this franchise, if you're a fan of even the first movie, you should probably read it. It's pretty awesome. But things kind of go in a downward trajectory, technically, if I look at this franchise as a whole. And I think the problem with it is that it doesn't quite understand its own rules. The first movie establishes that these zombies are going to die from starvation because they don't eat. And then in the second movie, it's kind of reestablished that that's the case. But that's not quite the case in 28 Years Later. Going into this movie, I figured they had to do, something with that because, if these zombies are going to die out from starvation, how can you have something happen 28 years later? Well, they do kind of address that in certain ways. You see the infected in this movie. You see them eating. You see them drinking water. So, clearly they know how to sustain their own existence at this point. Spoiler, you also see that they're procreating as well. You don't see the actual procreation, which would be wild, but you see what comes of it. And again, I'll try to save some things, try to keep them spoiler-free if I can. So I'll just say that you see the results of said procreation, which is, has some interesting ideas there. And, going into this film, I kind of found out late in the game that this was the beginning of a new trilogy. My heart kind of sank because I literally found that out like the day before I went to go see this. My heart kind of sank, hoping beyond hope that this movie would be a standalone film. But my first major gripe with 28 Years Later is that it is so not a standalone film. You get some conclusions to the stories that they put forward, some of the characters that they introduce you to in this movie. You get some conclusions to some of them, but not all of them. This movie very much left me feeling extremely unsatisfied when I finished watching it. And it's because it is really the groundwork for a trilogy, unfortunately. I think you can still make a movie stand alone and still have a groundwork for a trilogy, but this is almost like a TV show episode for like a mini series or something. Like, it is so clear that there is no true conclusion to this and that we have to just keep moving forward. I do hope that future movies, number 28 Years Later, parts 2 and 3, I hope that they are good enough to make me enjoy this movie. But as it stands, as far as like sort of story structure goes, I'm not a big fan of 28 Years Later. Again, it's because it's just left too open-ended with very few conclusions to what they bring to the table. Now, there is a lot to like about it. I very much enjoyed the family dynamic between Aaron Taylor Johnson, Jodie Comer, and their son, Spike, who's played by Alfie Williams. I enjoyed their dynamic. I enjoyed, they're a family with problems, let me say. But I enjoyed seeing their interactions together. I enjoyed, seeing the Aaron Taylor Johnson's character of the father. He is not the best guy in the world, but I don't think that he is malicious or anything. I think he's just kind of doing him in certain ways. But I do think he's trying to be a good father to his son, Spike, and teaching him sort of the ropes and how to survive in this world and everything. But he's not a perfect person. Neither is his wife and Spike's mother. She's not perfect either. And they have a lot of marital problems, which stem from some medical issues and things like that, which I found all very interesting. The problem is that it doesn't really lend itself to any conclusions to everything. There are some conclusions, but for the most part, it's still sort of open-ended without any sort of resolution between father and son, unfortunately, which I'm sure we will see in the next 2 movies, which is why I hope that maybe those movies will make this movie better. Kind of like how the rest of the prequel trilogy made Phantom Menace better. Like, I didn't love Phantom Menace when it first came out, but when I watch it as a part of the whole prequel trilogy, I appreciate what it's doing in the groundwork that it's laying. But the other movies, including the Clone Wars cartoons, really helped me enjoy that movie. So I'm hoping that happens here. Some other stuff that I did enjoy was some of the kills were pretty violent. There was some pretty awesome visual imagery of the infected kind of hunting down deer at night and everything. Their eyes were like reflective, kind of like how deer's eyes or animals' eyes are reflective in the camera light and everything. I thought that was very effective, and I said reflective and then effective, but I hope you guys caught that. I hope I didn't mess it up either, but I'll find out when I edit. So there's some cool stuff there. There's some cool stuff with the infected. There's some really gory kills, especially from the alphas. There's also a lot of swinging dong in this movie, especially big schlongers, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, you heard me right. There are these creatures called alphas. They kind of lead the other infected. They kind of actually have multiple kind of groups of infected. They have the slow crawlers, and then they have the fast runners. And then they have these huge, like almost towering giants that are the alphas. it's explained in the movie that the rage virus, some people, it acts like a steroid to them. Thus is why they gain so much muscle mass and they get so much bigger and they become alphas. They can also take a lot of damage too. It's a really cool visual. It's a really cool like addition to the 28 weeks later mythos and everything like that. Although, as you know, I've read the comic books Crossed, and if you've ever actually seen the movie The Sadness, it is pretty much a direct adaptation of Crossed. The guy who directed and I believe wrote The Sadness, he wanted to get the rights to Crossed, couldn't. So he made that instead, just kind of changed the title. But if you've seen The Sadness, it's very, very, very much almost a straight adaptation to Crossed. But in Crossed, there's like this idea that, you know, it's again another almost zombie-esque reality, but the bad, you know, the zombies are actually just really insane human beings. Obviously, they can be killed, but they can also take a lot of damage because they don't care about self-preservation. In that comic book, there are the idea of like alphas and everything. And when I was watching the movie, when I was watching 28 years later, couldn't help but think that maybe Alex Garland might have read Crossed at one point and took some ideas. But that being said, you know, I believe Crossed was kind of inspired by 28 Days Later, so it's all kind of cyclical and everything sort of, you know, inspires something else and then kind of goes in a roundabout way. As far as the acting goes, I think everyone did a great job. Now, my wife did not like the young boy, who is pretty much the lead of the film. She found him to be a little bit annoying. I kind of had no problem with him. He didn't really do anything that I thought was like dumb or, you know, acted in a way that I didn't think was how, you know, a 12-year-old would act in these insane circumstances. You know, everyone in it was great. It's just, I found myself to be rather bored throughout the entire film. I also found myself not scared at all. Like the probably the craziest jump scare was when like this fox runs out of a house when they open the door. And I was like, oh, you know, like I kind of felt something at that moment. Then not like I jumped or anything, but you know, my heart kind of jumped a little bit. I think the biggest jump scare is when these military guys are in like a tunnel and they have like headlamps on their helmets, you know, and everything. And one turns around, there's a, you know, an infected right behind him. I think it's an alpha, and he screams. And unfortunately, that was in the trailer. So you probably saw the biggest jump scare in the entire movie right there in the trailer. It's not a very scary movie. It is a beautiful film, though. I mean, Danny Boyle, his cinematography, or the cinematographer that he uses, is beautiful. And this thing is shot on like iPhones, which really come into play kind of in the first half of the film, and then it sort of dropped in the second half. But when you know, when Spike and his dad, Aaron Taylor Johnson, are you know, killing zombies when they're out on their hunt, they would shoot a zombie with an arrow, and as soon as the arrow hits the zombie, they would do this matrix spin around the zombie, you know, camera shot, to show the arrow kind of exiting, but it's all like, you know, sort of paused, very much like the Matrix. This was achieved by, I think, setting up like 20 iPhones, you know, in a half circle around the actor, the infected actor. And it's really well done. It's a very effective technique, especially, you know, since we haven't really seen it too much since the Matrix, which is sad because I always thought it was a really cool effect that, you know, I think the Matrix did it so well that people were like, I'm afraid to, you know, copy the Matrix. But here it's almost like they're half copying it because everything is always like a half circle, but it works really well. The problem is that Danny Boyle drops the effect like in the second half of the movie, which I was like, oh, okay, that kind of sucks, but all right, sure. You know, why not? Fine. I guess it keeps the first half of the movie different from the second half, because this movie is weirdly it's kind of episodic. It's almost kind of like broken into sort of three little chunks. The first chunk is Aaron Taylor Johnson and his son Spike going out. Well, Aaron Taylor Johnson's being the father. His name's Jesse. Jesse and his son Spike going out into the wilderness to hunt so that Spike can get his first kill. Another little segment is basically the middle part where there's like the home life, but you also get this like small military band that gets stranded in the mainland with, being hunted by infected. It doesn't really go anywhere. I mean, the characters kind of eventually meet up, but it's not anything major. And then you have the second third of the movie, which I'll kind of just not really say what it's about, because then you can leave that for a surprise. It kind of feels structurally like a TV show, to be honest with you, especially having the ending being very open-ended the way it is. Again, you will get a conclusion for at least one major character, but that's it. One major character and one minor character, but that's it. Honestly, you don't really get much more conclusion than that. It is very much the first part of a three-part series, three-part trilogy, I should say. But is it worth seeing in the theater? It's hard because I want to say yes. And that's only because I want there to be 2 more movies, so I want everyone to go spend their money and show that this, movie is worth seeing, or that this trilogy is worth continuing. But it's hard to actually recommend it in the theater. I would honestly kind of just wait for streaming. And even more so, probably wait and watch it closer to when the second movie comes out. Now, I realize if everyone does that, we probably will never get the second movie, but it seems like the positive buzz online is everyone freaking loves this movie. So I'm guessing a lot of people will go see it. But I didn't love it. I really, really didn't. Honestly, it's my third favorite now in the series. It really just kind of goes in waterfall order, 28 days later, 28 weeks later, and then 28 years later. It really does go in that order for me. And I think it's because at the end of the day, I think all we ever needed was 28 days later. I think that movie really tells a complete story. It has a conclusion. It has an ending. It gives us hope. Honestly, it pretty much says it right then and there in the ending that, they're going to starve to death and the world's going to be fine. I think truly that 28 Days Later is a perfect, just one and done zombie horror film. And I think, with the problems with part 2, and now with them sort of contradicting the world building that they've done with the zombies now not starving, and everything, then, and I can't remember if in the movie they really addressed it, why the zombies have actually survived for 28 years. They might have, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to make up for the fact that it was already established that they're going to starve to death and they have no interest in, eating worms or deer for sustenance. But that's what's happening in this movie. And yeah, I think that this movie and 28 Weeks Later, I think the problems with both of these films are apparent because of the fact that 28 Days Later is such a tight one and done film, and we really don't need anything more. Yeah, I hope you guys, if you do see it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you thought of the movie. Let me know what you thought of this mini review. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate my time with it, but I was a little bit bored during it. And I think I was becoming a little bit more annoyed once, kind of hit around the 2-hour mark. And I'm like, oh, there's not going to be any conclusion to this. Okay. So that's just, maybe if I had more time to prepare, knowing going into it that it wasn't going to have any major conclusions, then that might have helped my enjoyment of the film. But this might help you. That knowledge might help you if you've not watched this yet. So, but yeah. Anyways, let me know what you think. Leave a comment on our socials, leave a comment on Patreon if you're listening to that here. Speaking of Patreon, Zach and I just started our newest auteur on the Auteur de Force tier, which is our $5 monthly tier on Patreon. It's patreon.com/podcastafterdark. We just started the Lustig Factor, started going through Bill Lustig's catalog, with Maniac, which means we'll go all the way up until his last movie, which at this time of this recording, can't remember what that is. I don't think might be Uncle Sam. Can't remember. But if you sign up today for the $5 a month tier, you will also unlock the entire Carpenter Factor, which I believe is like 23 episodes, and the entire Coscarelli Factor, which is, I don't know offhand, like less than a year. So I think 8 or 9 episodes, 10 episodes, something like that. But you unlock all of those episodes right now, so you can listen to every single one of them. You can listen to it all. If you want to binge it all and then cancel your subscription, go for it. But it's all there, and we're starting the Lustig Factor now. And yeah, hope you guys dig it, and hope you dig this review. And yeah, I hope you dig 28 Years Later, because I don't ever go into a movie not wanting to enjoy it, so I don't want that to be someone else's case. I hope you do dig 28 Years Later, and let me know. Let me know. And as always, we'll catch you on the dark side.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.